Hi, everybody. You're listening to Wake Up with Patti Katter, and I have the best guy on my show today. I say this every week, don't I? But really, Mike Roger, he's phenomenal. I've met him in person. He literally stepped up to the plate big time for an organization that we're going to talk about today. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Mike is with Patriot Chamber. He is the executive director. He's also a military veteran. So, Mike, could you tell my listeners just a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and what you're doing?
Where I came from, well, firstly, every Texan is going to tell you they're from Texas. So we've got that going for us, right? I transitioned out of the military from active duty at the height of COVID. We didn't have a strong transition process at the time, and so we created a chamber of commerce called the U.S. Patriot Chamber of Commerce. It is created by civilians for veterans. And one of its purposes is to create a community of businesses that want to welcome veterans into the workforce, whatever that means. You know, some people are going to become CEOs, entrepreneurs, and 1099s, and others go work in the public or the private sector. Wherever they land, we just want to see them succeed because we really just believe in the value that veterans bring to the workforce.
Absolutely, you do, and you show it. So, you guys, my interaction with Mike at the beginning was incredible because I had a phone conversation with him about, hey, we want to, help veterans with some resume stuff. And Mike's like, just getting back from somewhere, and you can talk about that if you want. I'm not sure if you want to, but he was work related, gone, missing in action for a while. And he literally stepped up to the plate and just started hitting home runs with this thing. So, Mike, I'll let you explain a little bit about maybe how we connected.
Yeah, it was fun. I felt like a deer learning to walk for the first time. You know, I was awkward and stepping all over the place, right? But what we came up with was the idea of the Veterans Transition and Leadership Conference. And really, I'm going to give you credit because you inspired a lot of it. You kept me motivated, and I really felt like I wasn't sure how this was going to go, so I'm really grateful for the support that you gave, not only to the chamber but to the mission itself. And yeah, the Veterans Transition and Leadership Conference for the past year has been a full day-long event with Chris Hayes, who is now with Service Academy over at the Institute of World Politics. He's a great guy. He's a great teammate, as are you. And we all know that from experience. But yeah, the VTLC is oriented on helping senior military leaders make that mental transition into private sector leadership. So one of the key things that we do that's very, very unique is we don't have any veterans on stage. We don't have veterans up there presenting. I'm only there to introduce the guest speakers, but we use civilians to talk about what the civilian market expects from those veterans who are going to join that private sector workspace. And that became key to our identity as well as the program itself.
Mhm. And thank you for that amazing little plug there. You and Chris, though, are quite the dynamic team and so easy to work with. And it has been an incredible process to watch where this came from and where it is now and even where it's going. It's just incredible to be even a teeny tiny little part of it now. So thank you for that. Um, Now, Mike, tell my listeners a little bit about just why were you inspired, first of all? You are military, correct?
Yes. So I did 3 years active duty, got out. 9/11 happened, tried to go back in. They said, wait your turn. We've got 17-year-olds beating down the door. And I was in my third year of college at the time. So I waited. My National Guard unit that I was with at the time didn't get deployed. So I just kept waiting, and then my time expired, and I kind of felt like I wasn't going to get to participate. But in 2008, I heard about the troop surge, and by the end of 2009, I was back in, um, came back in, and yeah, that's my veteran experience right there.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That's incredible. So, One of the things that we all know is when veterans get out of the military, they have a really hard time deciphering their resume after they get out. How do you go from saying, hey, I was in 0311 or I was in 11 Bravo, to actually figuring out how to pick apart the tasks that you did in the military to transfer them over to civilian? And you help with that, don't you?
Yes, so we help in a couple of ways. Number one, of course, is the Veterans Transition and Leadership Conference. The VTLC brings in guys like Chris, who are experts in resume development. They're subject matter experts who have helped people make careers at the highest levels. Um, so that's a big part of what we do. But in addition to that, I volunteer with other groups such as the Honor Foundation, and go there and help them do their interview process. And anybody in that process that wants me to look over their resume, I do it completely for free. I'll do this for money in the private sector to civilians,
Mhm.
but for our veterans and other heroes, police, military, law enforcement, fire department, any first responders, I'll give you a courtesy review of your resume, as well as specific action steps that you should take to make it more palatable is a good word for the private sector who knows little to nothing about what you've ever done in the military. That is going to represent the majority of your civilian employers. And so that's why I frame it that way. Most of the civilians out there have little to zero experience. Remember, 3%, right? So zero to, just very little experience talking with, communicate, and working with veterans in the workplace. So um, there's the obvious points, don't use military jargon, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's fun, a little kitschy or whatever, but there's very little space for that in an actual job interview. So, we go through the obvious techniques of how to convert your resume, the language in the resume, into something that's what the civilians are used to hearing.
Mhm.
But the secret to the sauce is really this, and I'll drive this point home with those people that I'm working with. Um, every question you answer needs to account for either your ability to lead, your ability to be effective, which means you're going to grow. You're going to grow the business, right? Grow that top
Mhm.
line,
Mhm.
and your ability to create operational efficiency, which is
Mhm.
keeping the bottom line down. The way we frame it up is top line goes up, bottom line stays low, and leadership is the difference in between.
Mhm.
So, just real short and to the point, that's what we're putting out there.
Right, because too many young guys get out of the military or girls, they'll go to a job and they'll think that they're just going to get hired because it says on their resume, US Army. At the end of the day, those businesses really don't care so much if it just says US Army, but then you try to explain your skills to them and you say, well, like, I got up, I did PT, I passed my PT test. Like, they're not going to understand that. So, what you're doing is really amazing. Now, I know you and you're working all the time. You're either, you're here, you're there, you're doing all these things. What do you do for fun? Let's loosen up here for a second.
You know what? It's gonna be Yahoo College Pick'em.
Mhm.
That's fun for me right there. Either if I'm not on the beach or fishing, playing Yahoo College Pick'em is a big deal in my life. In addition to that, it's winter time, so duck hunting season's come around. Very excited about that. That's what's fun for me. That and some wifey time. I'm good to
Co-
go.
College Pick'em, what is that?
So yeah, you get like 25 games per week, and you just kind of we don't put any money into it or anything like that. You just try to make your best educated guess on who's going to win that game. So
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. All
yeah, who's
right.
going to win the
Yeah.
game? Who's going to beat the spread and compete against your peers and friends about see who's doing the. It's just for bragging rights. Yeah.
That's really fun. Recently, I talked to a guy and he was talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, "What? I never would have expected that." So I always like to ask now when I meet people or when I talk to people, like, "What do you do for fun? Is that even a thing? How do you even incorporate that in your life?" Now, when was there a process or a time that you didn't know how to have fun? Because when you have such a high speed job, like being in the military, sometimes it's really difficult to put your work aside. Even for me, I do a lot of things with refugee community and my other hat that I wear. And sometimes it's really hard to take that hat off for a little bit to have some fun because at the back of my mind, there's always something like somebody needs help. Something's going on in the world that needs my attention right now so that I can make this legacy or this world a better place. Do you have a hard time with that?
I'm gonna say yes, and I think my wife is gonna agree that I probably overcommit. And that's definitely a downfall is that I like to work, I enjoy work, and I put out a lot of work. So, um, and only thing I ask of other people is match my effort. You know,
Hmm.
if you're matching my effort and you bring a good attitude to work every day, then you're probably the kind of people that I want to work with.
Hmm.
Um, Technical proficiency is forgivable, but a poor attitude is just not. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
for me to make fun out of all that, I really work hard at kind of designating as much fun as I can because a lot of times, you take off the uniform, to use Army language there, you take off the suit and tie and you go to an event and, sometimes that might feel like work too. It's not as fun as it sounds when you're doing it all the time.
Hmm.
But I think when you put first things first and you realize that you've made your life a devotion to just making other people's lives better,
Hmm.
then everything's fun. So
Hmm.
I'm just gonna have a good time no matter where I go. And if that's not your vibe, that's okay. I'm gonna have fun in that space with whomever I'm with at that moment. And that's how I put fun into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true if you meet Mike because we were working our tails off one day and he still managed to smile. He managed to crack some jokes, and I like that about you, Mike. So if there's somebody listening to the show and they're not in Florida, can they still get involved with the organization, the Patriot Chamber, or is it Florida specific?
So it's not Florida specific. We do have a national strategic launch plan. And we're excited about anybody. Right now, target markets are in Tennessee, Texas, and North Carolina. We're definitely going to field that space that's nearest to some of our largest special operations and some of the larger military bases out there. So yeah, we're excited about that. If you're going to Fort Hood, Fort Campbell, or Fort Bragg, wherever you're at, in Colorado, even that's the space we're going to be growing into. So if you're already there, definitely help lay the groundwork. Talk to your friends, talk to your coworkers, talk to your business peers, talk to some veterans,
Mhm.
and start working on that community there because that's where we're headed next. And
Mhm.
um, I say this because we don't feel like we're being competitive with other people.
Mhm.
That's
Right. I
something
mean,
I think pretty unique about us is that we want everybody to succeed.
mhm.
That's how we do our best work is helping others succeed. So if you're already part of an organization that is, let's say, near to what we're doing, you're sort of in the same space. By all means, let's share that space, collaborate, and work together because at the end of the day, it's about the output,
Mhm.
and the output is, like I said, we want to see senior military leaders get out, create a great, have a great executive career and create space for more veterans to follow on because we really believe in the value that they bring into the corporate workspace.
Absolutely. And I like that so much. There are a lot of good organizations out there, but nobody's doing quite like what you're doing, and nobody has the connections that you have. So, if somebody wants to join the Patriot Chamber, how do they do that?
It's really easy. They're just going to go to patriotchamber.org.
Hmm.
I strongly recommend take your time, view the website, get to know the people. And I tell, job seekers the same thing. Learn the people, learn the culture, and decide if this is a cultural fit for you. Make it worth your time. So I would give no less of a recommendation. If you're going to look at the Patriot Chamber, do the same thing. Look at where we go, look at what we do. If that's a value that something that you value, if that's a mission that you want to be involved in, then join the
Hmm.
chamber. And
Hmm.
yeah, patriotchamber.org/join is where we're
Hmm.
at.
Excellent. And those listening, this is not a religious or political group. it's a nonprofit, so that's amazing as well. You can get involved if you love our military, if you love our country, if you love first responders, law enforcement. This is definitely for you. Um, yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Chris Hayes. He really has put a lot of effort into this, and maybe he'll listen to the show. I'm sure he will, because I'll force him to. But just kidding. He has a great organization too, Service Academy, and I know that you guys have worked together a little bit on that as well. So um, shout out to Chris.
Chris is amazing. We love the work that he does, but also the the mission that he represents. It is truly about leadership in the workplace, and I think he does it as well as anybody out there.
Absolutely. Yes. So, everybody, thank you very much for listening to the show. If you go back into the show notes, you're going to see the link to the Patriot Chamber. Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. If you have an opportunity, can you, well, actually, you do have social media. So, if you have an opportunity and you're listening, follow social media as well. How do they do that, Mike?
So you can find us on LinkedIn. That's where we're very heavy because veterans are heavy on LinkedIn. So just LinkedIn, I think it's IN and then slash Patriot Chamber. So or you just put it in the search queue, Patriot Chamber on LinkedIn. You'll see a lot of tags out there. You can do the same thing on Facebook or Instagram.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, I'll have the links to the show in the notes and on my social media as well. Until next time, you all stay patriotic. I had to throw that in there. Have a good night.